Welcome back to our quiet corner of history. Before we begin, please dim your lights and find a comfortable seat near the warmth of the fire. Tonight we journey back to the Victorian era. It was a time of strict rules and hidden desires, where even a single look could spark scandal. We will not speak of wars or empires today. Instead, we explore how people loved when they were not allowed to speak their hearts out loud. The Victorian age was defined by its rigid social codes. For the upper classes, every public movement was watched, analysed, and often judged by high society. Behind the beautiful lace and the heavy silk lay a world of deep suppression. Direct communication between lovers was often considered improper or even quite scandalous. Imagine a society where you could never be alone with the one you loved. Chaperones were everywhere, listening to every word and watching every single move. How do you say I love you when a guardian sits just 2 meters away? How do you confess your heart without uttering a single forbidden word? The answer lay in objects. Common items like fans and flowers were transformed into sophisticated tools of secret communication that bypassed the watchful eyes of others. This was the secret language of the Victorian era. It was a silent code, a way to whisper through the air without making a single sound. In this world, a slip of the hand or a choice of a flower could mean the difference between a lifelong romance or a social catastrophe. So let us lower our voices and step into the past. Let us learn the silent grammar of the fan and the floral poetry of Floriography. Welcome to the era of hidden meanings, where every gesture was a sentence and every bloom was a letter delivered in the palm of a hand. To understand this language, we must first understand the fan. It was far more than a tool for cooling oneself in a crowded hot ballroom. The fan was a woman's weapon and her messenger. It was a sophisticated piece of technology designed for the subtle art of Victorian-era romantic signalling. Each movement was carefully choreographed. Every angle of the fan held a specific meaning that only those who knew the code could truly hope to decipher. In the heat of a ball, under the glow of 1,000 candles, these fans were talking. They created a secret layer of conversation beneath the music. But one must be careful. To use the fan incorrectly was to risk everything. A clumsy gesture could lead to a very unintended and awkward invitation. The language of the fan was as precise as mathematics. It required grace, memory, and a steady hand to navigate the complex social waters of London. Before we dive into the specific gestures, look at the craftsmanship. These were items of great value, often passed down from mother to daughter as heirlooms. They were built to last, just like the rules they were meant to circumvent. They were the silent bridges between two souls trapped in a rigid world. Now, let us decode the fan. Let us learn the grammar of the hand and the silent vocabulary of the Victorian ballroom's most powerful instrument. Prepare yourself for a lesson in the art of the invisible. This is how the heart spoke when the lips were forced to remain perfectly still. To touch the right cheek with a folded fan meant a simple yes. It was the most sought-after signal for any gentleman waiting for an answer. Conversely, touching the left cheek was a quiet but firm no. It was a polite way to decline an offer without causing a public scene. Holding the fan over the eyes meant, I am sorry. It was a gesture of regret, perhaps for a missed dance or a misunderstood word. Drawing the fan across the forehead was a warning. It whispered, we are being watched, a crucial signal when the chaperone's eyes were turned toward you. To rest the fan against the left ear meant, I wish to be rid of you. A cold and direct signal hidden in a seemingly innocent pose. But to press a folded fan against the heart was a confession. It was the silent way of saying, you have won my love forever. A fan snapped shut with a sharp click was a sign of anger. It meant I hate you, or this conversation is finished for good. Waving the fan towards someone was a warm invitation. It said, you may approach me. It was the green light for a gentleman to start talking. To hide the face behind an open fan was a way of saying, I love you. It allowed the lady to blush without being seen by others. Placing the fan handle to the lips was a request for a kiss, or a plea for a secret to be kept between the two lovers. Twirling the fan in the right hand meant, I love another. It was a subtle way to discourage an unwanted suitor before they could even begin. but twirling it in the left hand was a plea. We are being overheard. It signalled the need for immediate caution and a change of topic. To let the fan rest on the right cheek meant, yes, I am willing. It was the ultimate signal of consent in the silent ballroom dance. An open-hued fan held slightly ajar meant wait for me. It promised a future meeting when the eyes of the world were finally elsewhere. Every movement was a thread in a tapestry of longing. The fan allowed the heart to beat faster while the face remained as cold as marble. Even dropping the fan was a tactic. It forced a gentleman to bow, providing a brief moment of private eye contact and perhaps a whispered word. The sound of fans was the background music of the era, a chorus of rustling silk and clicking ivory that told 1,000 hidden stories every night. This was the grammar of the touch, a language that didn't require a voice, only the courage to signal what the heart truly felt in secret. Young women spent hours practicing these gestures. They had to be perfect, for a single mistake could lead to a very public and embarrassing misunderstanding. In the grand theatre of Victorian life, the fan was the script. It allowed the players to say their lines without the audience ever hearing them. It was a beautiful, tragic dance of repression, a way to reclaim a small piece of freedom in a world that demanded total and absolute obedience. But the fan was only half the story. While the fan was for the instant, the flowers were for the long, slow passage of romantic time. Enter the world of floriography. If the fan was an instant message, then a bouquet of flowers was a long, carefully written and deeply poetic letter. In the 19th century, flowers were not just decorations, they were symbols, each carrying a specific meaning that could convey the most complex of human emotions. This was a science and an art. Popular dictionaries of flowers were found in almost every home, helping lovers to decode the messages they received. Lavender for devotion, rosemary for remembrance. The choice of a single stem could speak volumes about a person's intentions and their truest feelings. But beware the yellow rose. Today it means friendship, but to a Victorian it was a stinging insult, a symbol of infidelity and bitter jealousy. The white daisy represented innocence and loyal love. It was often the first flower shared between young hearts just beginning to discover the path of romance. A dark crimson rose spoke of mourning, or a love so deep it was painful. The nuances of colour were just as important as the species. The hydrangea, while beautiful, was a warning. It symbolised heartlessness or frigidity. Sending one was a polite way to tell a suitor to go away. Violets represented modesty. A gift of violets suggested that the sender admired the recipient's quiet nature and their inner, unassuming and graceful beauty. Floriography allowed for a conversation that could last weeks. A bouquet would arrive, be decoded, and then a floral reply would be sent in return. It was a slow, deliberate form of communication. It required thought, patience, and a deep knowledge of the natural world and its many hidden secrets. These messages were often kept for a lifetime. A pressed flower in a diary was a silent record of a conversation that happened decades ago. But floriography wasn't just about individual flowers. It was about the arrangement, the quantity, and even the way the bouquet was held by the recipient. Enter the tussy-mussy. This small, portable bouquet was the Victorian equivalent of a handwritten note, designed to be carried and displayed with pride. Every element of the tussy-mussy was curated. Time for courage, a rosebud for budding love, and lily of the valley for the return of happiness. The act of creating one was a ritual. It was a way for the sender to pour their heart into a physical object made of living things. How you received the flowers mattered. Holding them in the right hand meant a definite yes to the message or the suitor who sent them. Holding them in the left hand was a silent no. It was a public signal that the sender's advances were unwelcome and would not be returned. If she pinned the flowers near her heart, it was the best possible news. It meant she shared the sender's feelings and accepted their secret love. But if she placed them in her hair, it was a warning. It meant be careful, a sign that she was interested but the risks were too high. If the flowers were held upside down, the meaning was reversed. A symbol of love suddenly became a symbol of rejection, or even deep-seated dislike. To remove a single flower and drop it was a way of editing the message. It was a silent conversation, a negotiation of terms and feelings. The tussie-mussy was a living code. It breathed, it smelled sweet, and it eventually faded, much like the secret romances of the Victorian age often did. In that brief moment of exchange, a whole world was revealed. A secret pact was made, a promise given, all without a single word being spoken. There was a thrill in the danger. To decode a bouquet was to be part of an exclusive club, a hidden world beneath the surface of society. Why did they go to such lengths? Why not just speak? To understand, we must look at the psychology of the Victorian mind and its repression. In this era, emotional outbursts were seen as a sign of weakness or low breeding. A lady was expected to be a living statue of propriety. The social pressure was immense. The language of fans and flowers was a safety valve, a way to release the pressure of forbidden and hidden emotions. When you cannot scream your love from the rooftops, you let a camellia do it for you. It was a way to maintain dignity while still being human. It was a romanticism born of pain. The harder it was to communicate, the more meaningful every small and secret gesture eventually became for the lovers. In the modern world, we have lost this subtlety. We trade speed for depth, and instant clarity for the beautiful, slow mystery of the Victorian heart. Today we use emojis. They are quick and convenient, but they lack the weight of a hand-tied bouquet or the rustle of a lace-edge fan. There is something lost in our digital speed. We no longer have to wonder if a yellow rose is an insult or just a pretty simple gift. As we return to our library, let the quiet of the past settle around you. The language of fans and flowers is a ghost now, but its beauty remains. It reminds us that even in the most restrictive of times, the human heart will always find a way to speak its truth. I hope this story has brought you a sense of peace. Perhaps next time you see a rose, you will look for its hidden and silent meaning. Sleep well and dream of secret gardens and silent ballrooms. May your own heart find its way to speak, even in the quietest of moments. Good night. Thank you for listening to these whispers from the past. May your dreams be filled with the soft fragrance of roses and the rustle of silk. The secrets are safe now, the fans are closed, and the flowers have said all they needed to say. Sleep in the silence of history tonight. Remember, love always finds a way, even if it has to use the silent flutter of a fan or the scent of a hidden secret bloom. The end. Sleep now. We revisit the details. The fan was not just silk and bone, it was a canvas for dreams, a physical manifestation of a lady's inner world. In the heat of the Victorian parlour, the fan provided a gentle escape. It was a tool of comfort and a vessel for the unspoken heart. Each fan was unique, a masterpiece of manual labour. They were built with the same care and precision as the social rules they subtly challenged. Look at the distance between them. In public, the gap was wide, but look closer at her hand as she holding her fan in a specific way. Even in the stiffness of a photograph, the language was there. A secret bridge built of ivory and silk spanning the chasm of Victorian-era social propriety. The sound was as important as the sight. A quick opening could signal surprise, excitement, or a sudden, sharp warning to a lover across the room. The closing was a period at the end of a sentence. It brought a conversation to a close for better or for worse, in total sense. It was a world of shadows and light. Every action had a double meaning, and every stolence was filled with the weight of things left unsaid. Every detail was an opportunity. Even a loose thread or a specific bead could be used to signal a hidden thought to a watchful suitor. Even when not in use, the fan was present. It was a constant companion, a silent witness to the long, regulated days of a Victorian lady's life. "Do not betray our secret," the fan whispered as it touched the lips. It was a plea for loyalty in a world of gossip and scandal. We transition now, moving from the movement of the hand to the growth of the earth. From the fan to the bloom, the language continues. Lily of the valley meant the return of happiness. It was a delicate flower for a delicate sentiment, often sent after a period of romantic sorrow. A red tulip was a bold declaration of love. Less subtle than a rose, it was a direct and powerful statement of a heart's true desire. Forget-me-nots carry their meaning in their name. They were the tokens of parting lovers, a promise of fidelity despite the long distance and time. The anemone symbolized forsaken love, a sad message to receive indicating that a romance had ended before it could even truly begin to blossom. Ivy stood for fidelity and friendship. It was the background to many floral messages, a promise of a love that would endure and grow strong. Imagine the conversations held here, not with voices, but with the quiet exchange of sprigs and blossoms, a language the world could not hear. Pink carnations meant, "I will never forget you." A mother's love or a lover's promise, they were the constant reminders of a deep inner bond. Basil surprisingly meant hatred. To receive a sprig of basil was a cold and clear sign of enmity, hidden in the guise of a gift. Marigolds symbolized grief or jealousy. They were the darker notes in the floral symphony, representing the pain that often comes with a deep love. Scent was part of the message. The fragrance of a bouquet would linger in a room, a ghostly reminder of the person who had sent it. These flower holders, or porte-bouquet, were elegant accessories. They allowed a lady to carry her secret messages with her throughout the social evening. The secret exchange. A tussie. As he passed in the shadows was a daring act of rebellion against the strict and watchful eyes of Victorian society. The subtlety was the point. To the unaware, it was just a bunch of flowers. To the lover, it was a complex and beautiful confession. The arrangement told a story. The flower in the centre was the main theme, while the surrounding blooms added context and deeper, more subtle shades. Even in death, the flowers spoke. A withered bouquet might signal a neglected love, or a heart that has grown tired of waiting for response. Gardens were built as libraries of emotion. A stroll through a park was a journey through a world of symbols and hidden, silent, romantic cues. There was a certain irony in using nature to express feelings that society tried so hard to prune and control with its many rigid laws. The Victorian lover was a detective. They had to be, for the language of flowers was a puzzle that required a keen and careful eye. A rosebud meant confession of love. It was the beginning of the story, a tentative first step into the complex world of Victorian-era romance. But every rose has its thorn. The language of flowers did not shy away from the darker, more painful aspects of the human romantic experience. In mourning, flowers were the only comfort. They spoke the words that grief made impossible to utter, a final message to the one who had gone. Sunflowers represented adoration or haughtiness. Their meaning depended entirely on the context and the relationship between the sender and the recipient of the gift. Ferns meant sincerity. They were the grounding element of a bouquet, a promise that the emotions being expressed were true and deeply felt by the sender. The language was everywhere. Even a common flower girl on a street corner was, in her own way, a dealer in secret and silent messages. The lily meant purity and majesty. It was a high compliment, often reserved for those who were held in the highest social and personal esteem. Sometimes the message was never received. A flower lost, a meaning misunderstood, a heart left waiting in the silence for a reply that never came. Like the seeds of a dandelion, these messages were fragile. They relied on the right person being in the right place at the right time. Purple hyacinth meant, "I am sorry," or "please forgive me." It was a flower of regret, a plea for a second chance in a romance. Mint symbolized virtue. It was a way to praise the recipient's character, a subtle nod to their inner strength and their moral and social standing. The orchid was a symbol of rare beauty and refined love. It was a bold and expensive choice reserved for the most serious of romantic intentions. Many kept records of the flowers they received. It was a way to preserve the secret conversation, a floral diary of a hidden life and heart. The industry of floriography was vast. Florists were not just selling plants. They were selling the means to communicate the most private of human feelings. There is a beauty in the complexity. The Victorians took something as simple as a garden and turned it into a sophisticated and silent social network. Snowdrops meant hope. They were the first sign of spring, a promise that even the coldest winter of the heart would eventually come to an end. The touch of a petal could be as powerful as a touch of the hand. It was a physical connection mediated by the beauty of the natural world. As the flowers dried, the secrets they held became part of the home. They were the silent ghosts of conversations that once burned with passionate intensity. The simplicity of the daisy game belied the complexity of the era. Even children were learning the basic foundations of this secret and silent language. The fan and the flower. Two tools, one purpose, to bridge the gap between two hearts in a world that demanded they remain forever apart. We return to the fan. Its role in the ballroom was matched only by the flower's role in the garden. Together, they were a complete language. In the mirror of society, she had to be perfect, but in the language of her fan, she could be herself, at least for a moment. The connection to nature was vital. It was as if the Victorians believed that only through the natural world could their truest feelings be properly expressed. The rhythm of the fan was the rhythm of the heart. A nervous flutter, a slow and deliberate wave, a sudden and angry snap of finality. The messages were everywhere, often hiding in plain sight. To the uninitiated, they were invisible. To the lover, they were the only things that mattered. We write our secrets in ink now, or in pixels, but once we wrote them in the way we held a fan or the flowers we chose. The era of secret languages is gone. The rules have changed, and the silence has been replaced by the constant noise of the modern world's communication. But the clothes and the fans remain. They are the artifacts of a time when love was a puzzle, a mystery, and a very dangerous game. The waiting was the hardest part. The silence between the message sent and the message received was filled with 1,000 hopes and 1,000 fears. She carries her fan like a shield and a sword. It is her only way to fight back against the cold and rigid expectations of her world. When the language failed, the heart broke. A misunderstood gesture could lead to a lifetime of regret and a love that was forever lost to time. Contrast this with the Victorian garden. Here there are no rules. The flowers grow where they will, and their meanings are only what we give them. We have gained freedom, but perhaps we have lost some of the magic, the thrill of the secret, the beauty of the hidden and the unspoken. The language of fans was a language of tears as much as it was a language of smiles. It was the only outlet for a suppressed soul. The men also had to learn the code. They had to be alert, watching every movement of every fan and every choice of every floral stem. To carry a secret was a burden and a joy. It was a way to feel alive in a society that often felt like a cold, living tomb. The social web of the Victorians was intricate. One wrong move and you were caught, exposed to the judgmental and unforgiving eyes of the public. Behind closed doors, the rules were different. But even then, the habits of the public world often followed the lovers into their most private spaces. The diary was the only place where the silence could be broken, where the meanings of the fans and flowers could be written down in plain words. A fan between two worlds, one foot in the social ballroom, the other in the private heart. A bridge made of the most delicate and fine materials. Small things held the entire world. A single gesture, a single flower, a single moment of eye contact across a crowded and loud social room. At the end of the night, the fans were put away. The code was silenced, at least until the next ball and the next secret romantic meeting. The day is done. The secrets are put to bed. But the language of fans and flowers will always be there, waiting in the pages of history. She knows something we don't. She understands a world where silence was a choice, a tool, and a very beautiful and powerful way of being. We carry our secrets in lockets, in hearts, and in the way we look at the ones we love. The Victorian language is just one version of it. Time moves on, the fans are now museum pieces, and the flowers are just flowers again. But the human heart remains exactly the same as it was. Next time you walk through a garden, listen closely. You might hear the faint whisper of a secret carried on the scent of a blooming rose. We can still learn this language. We can still appreciate the art of the subtle and the beauty of the hidden and the unspoken and private. The library is a treasure chest. It holds the keys to understanding how we once were and how we might still be beneath all our modern noise. Open a book, open a world, the secrets of the Victorian age are there, waiting to be rediscovered by those who are willing to look and listen. In the silence of the library, the past speaks. It tells us stories of love that had to be earned, decoded, and carefully protected from the world. It was a world of eyes, watching, waiting, and always judging, but also a world of hearts, beating behind the silk and the lace and the bone. The language became a part of them, a second nature, a silent way of being that defined their lives and their many hidden, secret and private loves. The gate is closed. The garden is quiet. The secrets are safe within the walls of time, waiting for the next person to come and find them. The furniture, the clothes, the fans, they are all props in a play that has ended long ago. But the emotions they represented are forever real. Love and pain, hand in hand. The Victorian language of fans and flowers was built to carry both, with equal grace and equal, silent and deep power. A lost message, a forgotten code. The tragedy of the past is often found in the small things that were left behind and then slowly forgotten by all. We remember for them. We tell their stories so that their silent hearts can be heard once more, in our own time and in our own and modern way. But if you stand very still, you might still hear it. The rustle of a fan, the scent of a rose, the silent beat of a Victorian heart. This is the legacy of the secret languages, a reminder that communication is more than just words. It is about the intent, the object, and the silent heart. We are free now, but we can still appreciate the beauty of the struggle, the art of the hidden, and the poetry of the secret and silent gesture. There is always more to find. Always another layer of meaning, another secret hidden beneath the surface of what we think we already know so well. The book is closed, the lesson is over. But the language of fans and flowers will live on in your mind, a silent poem from the past. May your own heart find its language. Whether through words or fans or flowers, may you always find a way to speak your truest and deepest secrets. Good night. Sleep in the beauty of the unspoken. May your dreams be filled with the secret and silent languages of the human and eternal heart. The city of London was the stage, a sprawling, misty backdrop for thousands of secret dramas played out in the drawing rooms and grand ballrooms of the elite. Time was rigid, but emotion was fluid. The Victorian heart beat with a passion that the social world tried desperately to contain and control with rules. To enter this world was to accept its silence. But within that silence, a vibrant and complex language of objects began to flourish and grow deep. The physical restraint was a mirror of the social restraint. The body was bound, but the spirit found its release in the subtle flip of a fan stick. A chorus of silence. Each lady was a transmitter, sending out hidden signals while the men in the room tried to decode the fluttering and clicking rhythms. The social stakes were high. One wrong interpretation of a fan gesture could lead to a challenge, a scandal, or a lifetime of being social pariah. The fan was an extension of the self. Its beauty reflected the lady's status, but its movements revealed her most private and hidden and secret thoughts. When words failed, the body spoke. The fan was the medium, the hand was the author, and the silent and watching heart was the intended and secret reader. The arrival of flowers was an event. It was the arrival of a secret message, a floral letter that required time and a dictionary to properly understand. Sometimes the flowers were just the beginning. A hidden note within the stems could clarify a meaning or set a time for a secret and forbidden meeting. The purity of the lily was a message of respect. But even the most respectful message could be a part of a very secret and forbidden romance. The aftermath of the secret dance. The physical evidence of a night of hidden communication, left behind as the world returns to its rigid and social rules. Every texture in the Victorian world was rich with meaning. The soft velvet, the cold ivory, the delicate silk, all parts of the grand and silent romantic theatre. the wear and tear of love. A well-used fan was a record of many secret conversations, many hidden signals, and many moments of intense and private heartbeats. The language was a burden as much as a gift. It required constant vigilance, a mind that never rested, and a heart that was always decoding the ink of emotion. Whether in words or in gestures, the need to express the self was constant, even in the most restrictive and cold of eras. The reveal. A message understood, a heart opened, a secret shared between two people who were never meant to speak their truest and deepest feelings out loud. The secrets are stored. They wait in the dark, in drawers and diaries and memories, for a time when they can be spoken without fear of a scandal. History moves in cycles. The rules change, but the need for secret and meaningful communication remains a constant part of the human and eternal romantic experience. Even the simplest flower was a code. The daisy, the rose, the lily, they were the building blocks of a floral language that spanned a whole and rigid era. To rediscover this language is to rediscover a part of ourselves, a part that values the subtle, the slow and the beautiful art of the unspoken heart. A fire of passion cooled by a fan of silk. The Victorian heart was a place of contradictions, where every gesture was both a shield and an invitation. Lace, fans, and flowers. The trinity of Victorian secret communication. They were the tools of a generation that learned to speak with their hands and hearts. The scent of devotion. A message that bypassed the eyes and went straight to the soul. A lingering reminder of a love that was secret and deep. The meeting of the two languages, the fan and the flower, finally together in a moment of absolute and silent and deep emotional and romantic honesty. Even the jewellery was part of the game. Every movement was a choice, and every choice was a signal in the grand and silent Victorian-era social theatre. Some secrets were too dangerous to keep. They had to be destroyed, leaving only the memory of a fan gesture or the scent of a hidden flower. The traces remain. In the dust of history, we find the outlines of a world where love was a secret and communication was a beautiful and slow art. Nature provided the inspiration. The Victorians simply took that beauty and used it to say the things that their society would not allow them to speak. The night is at its deepest, the language is at its most potent. In the silence of the dark, the fans and flowers tell their truest stories. This rosebud is a confession, a silent promise that the language of the heart will never truly fade, no matter how much the world may change its rules. We close the world out now. We focus on the small, the subtle, and the secret. The things that make a life meaningful beyond the public and loud. The pendulum of the heart, swinging between hope and fear, between the yes of the right cheek and the no of the left cheek, in total silence. To know the code is to have the key. To understand the language of flowers is to be able to unlock the most private of Victorian secrets. This is the power of the unspoken. It lingers longer than words, and it carries a weight that 1,000 spoken sentences could never hope to achieve. A petal, a promise, a locket, a heart. The Victorian world was a world of small containers for very large and very powerful and secret human emotions. Secrets within secrets. The language was as deep as the hearts that used it, a layered and complex way to be true in a very false world. Creativity born of constraint. When the rules were hard, the human heart became inventive, finding 1,000 new ways to say I love you in secret. The signal is sent, the message is out. Now comes the long silent wait for the reply, for the floral signal that will change a life forever. Not every message is kept, not every secret is remembered, but the act of sending them was what kept the Victorian heart alive and beating and hopeful. The shifting colours of emotion. A fan was never just one thing, just as a heart is never just one feeling. It is a spectrum of hidden and secret depths. The fire is dying, but the warmth remains. The stories of the Victorian secret languages will stay with you, a warm ember in your own and private heart. We say goodbye now. We leave the fans and the flowers in their own time, but we take their lessons of subtlety and depth with us tonight. Sleep in the silence of history. May your own secrets be as beautiful and as meaningful as a hand-tied bouquet or a rustle of a fine lace fan. Good night. The language is complete. The silence is yours to keep. May your dreams be filled with the secret and silent poetry of the heart.